Hi, Philadelphia Jewish Film Festival. Thanks for tuning in. This is Elliot Ratzman. I'm a visiting professor of Jewish studies in Grinnell, Iowa, but I'm coming to you from Mount Airy, Philadelphia. I'm here with four up-and-coming content creators who I want to briefly introduce, and then we're going to talk about the film that they've provided. I've Oren Steinberger, Ayala Snir, Sharon Cohen, Li-or Dekel. So who would like to explain the origins of this video project? Just go ahead. Li-or, why don't you go ahead since you're unmuted?
No, I'm unmuted. I think, what do you mean by origins?
How did it start? How did you all come together to do this?
Okay, so I think everybody just we all just come to the program, and then the program gives us tasks, and this was one of our tasks. I was actually the CEO of the company, and we worked really hard on this video to make sure it was our best. We really wanted it to be great and to showcase, I think, how Israel is a beautiful country. And yeah.
Who wrote the script? Were you all involved with it, or did somebody take a lead?
It was kind of just like all of us together, and we all put our little part into it. But we all together worked on the script.
And how did you all come together in this group?
So I will give more background. We are from Eitanim program, and the Eitanim program is part of the Israeli-American Council here in the United States. So actually, it's a program that brings together Jewish and Israeli Americans for the United States. We are the group of Philadelphia. And as Li-or said, we bring tasks to the group, like they are high school and middle school also groups. They were middle school last year. So they're getting a task about problems that have connection to Israel or to the Jewish heritage. And then they need to solve and to find a solution for it. And the solution for the problem that we will talk about I'm sure soon, was to do the film, to make this film.
Did any of you have filmmaking experience before this?
None of us had any filmmaking experience. We actually learned I at least learned how to edit a video, and I think that it was really a great opportunity to learn filmmaking. It was really interesting.
So it seemed like it was animation. How did you come to choose that particular version?
So we all, for a few of our meetings, we all came together and brainstormed a bunch of ideas, and looking at our timeline and how we all come from different areas around Philadelphia. And so we found that different ideas seemed less effective in like putting out our message. And what we wanted to do was showcase Israel and Israeli Americans and the culture from a different point of view. And so doing this stop motion, we had a lot of creative freedom in putting out the message that we wanted to. And so what you asked before, the question about filmmaking, it was the learning curve of not only trying to put out a message of what we wanted the world to hear, but also how are we going to do that using the technology that we were given with.
So would somebody like to describe what kind of work it took to make a few seconds of the film?
We did little cutouts, like we had a little set, and we had cutouts, and we had to put one in and take one out and put one in and take it out. And it took a lot of work, and it was like every photo we took, it was like little. And I think that it was super fun just seeing how it turned out in the end. And yeah, it took a lot of work though to put one in, and then slowly move it out.
Also, behind every shot is hours of thinking of what we want to do and what we want to say, and planning, laying everything out. The three of us, Oren, Li-or, and I, we also met outside of the program for extra hours to film more and lay out all the cutouts, because every one of those shots is many, many minutes of work of just moving around the pieces. And if you think of it, it's hours behind every single screenshot of all the thinking of the process and organizing and cutting and printing and drawing.
So maybe we should go around and just, if you would tell us how old you are, where you are at now, and maybe what part of Philadelphia you hang out in when you're here, so that our Philadelphia audience might be able to see you at some point in the future.
Okay, so I guess I'll start. My name is Li-or. I'm from Israel, but when I live in Philadelphia, I used to live in mainline area.
I'm Oren, and I'm in Israel as well. And when I was in Philadelphia, I used to live in Winwood.
I'm Ayala, and I am currently in the same place I was. I'm in Chesterbrook, which is about 45 minutes to an hour from Philadelphia.
And I am Sharon. I'm here as a Shlicha Israeli Fellow. I came from Israel about a year ago, and I live in Philadelphia, the city.
So your film tries to capture a slice of what you love about Israel. Maybe if you might say a few nice things or bad things about Philadelphia and how it compares to Israel.
Well, I don't think we have to say bad things, but it's definitely different. But what we were trying to show is our gathering brings us or brought us a sense of community, of a place to speak some Hebrew and share experiences, because even though all four of us are very different people, different ages, different backgrounds and places, we all speak the same language and come from the same culture. And so meeting in Philadelphia, where in most of the area, there aren't many Israelis, and even in the area they are, this allowed us to bring ourselves as a community. And so in Philadelphia, you see different cultures, right? In the US in general. But when we gather around in Eitanim, we were able to celebrate our own culture.
I totally agree with Ayala, and I think it's also super important to say that I think that for me, before coming to Eitanim, I didn't have any Israeli community. And when I came to Eitanim, it really first taught me so much about Israel. And second of all, it truly showed me that there's so much more to Israel than what we think. And I think it's really just amazing.
I would like to add that as part of the program, we work in collaboration with the mentors from the community. It means I'm the program manager, but we are also bringing mentors from the community from different fields. And for this, last year we had Alona, which is Li-or mother, and she is really amazing in the marketing and and all this kind of field. And she also helped the kids a lot to do it in a really professional way.
Well, I also want to give you all a chance to say a few more words about what you would have put in if the film was longer. Like what kind of scenes, what kind of statements might you have put in had you a bigger budget and more time to process?
I think I might put in about the Israeli music or something that is modern right now. So everyone will know a little more about the music, about the actors, and all of those kind of things.
I think we should have put more, if the movie was longer, put more innovations, because there's so many inventions that are super cool to Israel, but we didn't have time to put all of them in. So I think we would have put more inventions.
I would say, I think less our restriction in terms of the time and length of the movie. Our biggest issue was our timeline to make the movie. And so we had a lot of ideas that we had to set aside and choose a different path because we had less time to create it. So I think if we had more time to make the movie, we would have put us in it. We were planning to make it maybe a different format, even though I think stop motion went really well. But I think to show us as like teenagers, as people, because the more you see a person in front of you, then you notice, wow, they are similar to me, right? They are not that different from me. We're people, we just come from different places. And so we would be able to share more of how Oren said, like music and the culture, if we were able to have longer time period to make it.
I noticed in the film, there were some images from older Israeli tourist advertisements, the kibbutznik, the sabra with the hat, I believe. Were you inspired by older outreach videos or posters to create those images or to use those images?
I think so our film company, because our task was to become a company and we each had a role in the company. And so our name was Pizza Bal, because we always ate pizza every time we've met. And then Tzabal the cactus, which is a very classic symbol of an Israeli born person or Israeliness. And so I think it's in our subconscious, right? We weren't necessarily looking for inspiration from old things and searching for ideas as much as it was just something that clicked. And then in the video, how you said the chalutzim and the kibbutznikim, that was more because we were talking about the history, right? And so that's really how our country was built and how our grandparents and great-grandparents were.
The pioneers.
And so that's why we chose to showcase them.
I really love the cactus at the end with the hat. I think you should make posters and t-shirts. So what's next on your film company's agenda? What's the next project, if you have one?
Girls, maybe you can share about the next steps we thought about when we wanted to to go forward with it.
We have a question from an audience member here. Let me put that forward. Were there any films or genres, types of films that really inspired you while you were making this? Did you look at other models of maybe animation or short films?
We actually did. We had so many ideas, but like I had said earlier, we had a timeline, and in order to complete the movie, we had to find the one we liked and just go for it. And I think that stop motion really caught our eye. Other ideas we had was actually putting ourselves in the movie and making it something interesting, but we didn't have enough time. So
I think But what we can say, even though we chose to go in a different path that we initially thought we would, because we weren't necessarily planning on going on a specific genre, right? A type. It wasn't in our, we weren't thinking, the first thing we thought wasn't, oh, we want to make stop motion. The first thing was we want to put out our ideas and culture. But we did hear from and take inspiration from the way of storytelling from Iris Zaki, I think, right? That was her name. And we looked at a lot of other filmmakers and how they really tell a story and what they focus on and what is most important to them in putting out a message. And so, like, is it more on the visual? Is it more of how you say it? When should you say this and that? And how will you make what you want to say stand out? And so that is most inspiration we took from how to tell the story.
That's great. Now I want to ask you, like, who was your intended audience? I mean, obviously there's a lot of people here in the Jewish Film Festival, an audience who been to Israel or boosters of Israel. But did you have a particular ideal person in mind that you were building it for?
Jewish Americans our age, because we felt as if there were a lot of Jewish Americans in specific Philadelphia and even in the US that didn't know a lot about Israel. And we wanted to showcase Israel and really teach them more about it. So, yeah.
Do you think it accomplished the task?
I think also our goal was beyond our community, because it's so important for us to have visibility on the screen and to see people like us and people that know their history. And then going beyond that was we wanted to initially share with other people who don't necessarily know about our culture. They only hear Israel on news with negative things and war. And we wanted to show them there is a completely other side you're not told about. In the media and on the news, you're not told about all these singers and cultural things and our history and innovation and how we are doing very well in STEM. And so also going beyond the Jewish American teens and Israeli Americans was also to show Americans who are not Jewish and those teenagers that there's another side to the story.
Well, since you are our cultural ambassadors to all the people watching, perhaps you could recommend a few good musical acts for us to check out. I saw Awa a few years ago here in Philly. Do you have any other suggestions for different bands?
I think it depends on what genre. Popular, I would say Oren, but other than that, I don't know who else. I'm trying to think.
Well, who are your favorites?
I don't listen to a lot of like Israeli music. I like more USA pop music. But if you're interested in pop music, Omer Adam's a really good one.
Other folks?
I think the more you are, the longer you are in America, the more you listen to Israeli music because the more you miss. But other recommendations, like what I like, things like Harel Scott, maybe Avraham Tal. Americans don't know about these people, right? You never hear these names. Omer Adam, they might hear, they obviously know Neta Barzilai, who was in the Eurovision, who won first place. But there's a ton, yeah.
Maybe we can recommend Shlomo Artzi. I think it's really authentic, really Israeli.
Eliad.
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Well, I'm so glad that you all are our cultural ambassadors. are you all anticipating coming back to the United States after our current COVID crisis has gone away?
I think it depends on how I'm feeling. But I think maybe. Sure, why not?
We have some comments in the chat here. Let me just read them out to you. Israeli cinema and television has seriously taken off in the last few years, especially with Stetzel and Fauda. What makes a film or TV show so good? Is it all about the story or more? Maybe this is a philosophical question, but if you have some answers.
I think most important thing in telling a story is authenticity. I think that's the most important thing as a viewer that you want to see is authenticity. You don't want to hear just another story that any person can tell, right? That any person can write high school drama and these things. So authenticity makes a story stand out and brings an audience that could maybe either know the story and really relate to it, or an audience who has never even heard of something, but because you're portraying it in such an authentic way, then you're able to put out what you're trying to tell, right? And the viewer is really able to feel like they're a part of the story and they're in it. And so I think that if a filmmaker is being authentic, that's really important. That's another reason why we were really passionate about making sure that we tell our story in our film, My Israeli Story, so authentically, like it basically follows Li-or's life, right? You can see she tells about how her family moved to India, right? That's true story. All of these things that Li-or is saying, that she felt like the little sayings she said about her parents, as Israeli parents will drive hours to go eat a good hummus, right? These are authentic things. These are things that Israelis can relate to, and non-Israelis can feel like, oh, you know, this is nice to see. I can really see inside the story and not just around with a bubble.
I think I agree with what Ayala said, and I think it's something that has to do with the culture, because the high school is regular, every country has high school, but if it's about Jewish people or the Jewish community, it'll make things different, so everyone will want to see this and not the high school drama or something.
So has this gotten you thinking about writing some more stories? Maybe autobiographical, maybe fictional, about Israel or your lives in Israel?
Actually, this year I decided to continue the Eitanim program through Israel since it's on Zoom. I wake up every morning, I guess, and I go on Zoom. But I think that I think that Eitanim this year, I guess, it's like the opposite. It makes me practice my English. So I think it's really important to do that too.
I think also beyond necessarily the filmmaking, because the goal of Eitanim program is not for you to become the next film, whatever, right? It's not specifically film. That was just one of our tasks. Both of our tasks, we happen to choose to also show them in film. But the most important was that we will become the next leaders, right? It's important that the entire Israeli American and Jewish American community is represented in the world by people who make us proud and people who are able to speak and present and know how to raise their voice when it needs to be raised and know when to step aside when they need to, and having that skill set, and also surrounding themselves with innovation and how to always make themselves better. And so I think the most important part of Eitanim was just that opportunity to really practice these skills that we will use for the rest of our lives. We presented to many different audiences, and we are doing so right now in a different format than we did before coronavirus. But I think the most important part was just the skill set that we gained beyond just editing a video or doing stop motion. Skills that I feel I've used stop motion after Eitanim, and yes, it was easier, but I think the thing that was more important was when I have presentations in my school, I feel more confident, right? I know how to summarize a topic and how to pitch an idea in a more effective way that will go on with all of us later on in life and will help us represent our community better.
As we're closing up here, would you all like to talk or tell our listening audience how they might be able to either get involved with Eitanim or recruit people for Eitanim?
Yeah, of course. So I think I will talk about it. Eitanim program is really now in the COVID, it's really open for everyone. As Li-or said, she's joining from Israel, so it's really crazy. It's running in a lot of different states and also in Philadelphia, of course. And it's involving middle school, high school kids. And yeah, you can find a lot of info in the IAC website. But I think, like what Ayala said, it's really what it is. It's to give these amazing teens skills and values and get the Jewish identity like more clear to them and work together as a group. Like it's a lot of things and not a specific task. So yeah, I think it's a really special program, and I really encourage every Jewish Israeli American teens who feel like he wants to touch these things and be a leader in his community to join it.
Well, my thanks to all of you. And thanks for your little film. It's a small but powerful statement, and I wish you all the best in the future. And with this, we're going to conclude. So have a good night, everyone.
You too.
Thank you very much.